Let's imagine you're playing a game of Monopoly with your old Uncle Sam. But instead of playing by the same rules, he can print all the money he wants at any time and use it whenever he feels like it. Wouldn't you feel screwed over playing a game like that? Yes, I thought so. And obviously, this is a game you cannot win because having the ability to print money at any time, Uncle Sam can lower the value of your money, and no matter how hard you work and no matter how successful you are, you will never win. Then take a look at the real world for a second. Yes, that is basically what is happening right now. And the way things are going, many of us will become debt slaves to a ruling class of financial elites if we don't watch out. And this is not because they are better or more hardworking than any of us, but because they have rigged the system to benefit themselves at the expense of all of us. Why is it that you have a 50-hour work week and still have trouble making ends meet while a small elite get richer doing absolutely nothing? Think about it for a second. If you print your own money, it's called counterfeiting. But if banks do it, it's called increasing the money supply. But do they increase the money supply to make the world a better place? No. It's our central banks that are responsible for printing money, and they have a partnership with the government. That way they get a monopoly on making money. You could say it's kind of a privilege or gift given from the politicians to a few lucky banks, and in return, the central banks promise to create money out of thin air anytime the government needs it. So since the financial crisis in 2008, we have seen the greatest counterfeiting scam and cover-up in history, and it leaves us all with a huge bill to pay. The problem is that we have a private-owned central bank system disguised as a government-owned system, and that basically means we have a private business that prints money on behalf of the government. This is a debt-based system that creates scarcity when the banks push the right buttons, and at the very same time it puts a group of very few insiders in a position of having access to all the data about the economy, so they are protected in the future. We are told that the Federal Reserve is an institution that helps stabilizing the economy and remain politically independent, but how well do we think it works? Since the Federal Reserve took charge, the purchasing power has declined dramatically due to inflation, and the wealth gap between rich and poor is only getting bigger, which makes it clear that most of the wealth only benefits a few. The central banks got monopoly on creating money, but no accountability whatsoever, and on top of that, they are backed by the government. But let's dig down into history for a second. Before the big crash in 1929, the elite bankers took most of their money out of the stock exchange and used it to buy cheap stocks, property, and small banks after the crash. Doesn't it sound familiar? Yes, that's right. It was the same pattern we saw during the financial crisis in 2008. In the years leading up to the collapse, the biggest banks were trading bad loans that they knew would eventually fail, but they didn't give a shit because this was part of their plan. They knew it was a matter of time before the whole thing would collapse, but nevertheless, they kept on dealing worthless shit up until the very end, and when it all blew up, everyone was impacted. People lost their jobs, homes, and retirements, and at the same time, the biggest banks who created the problems in the first place were bailed out by the Federal Reserve. Anyways, here's how the banks trick you into being a debt slave for the rest of your life if you don't watch out. First, they throw out the bait by putting lots of money into circulation. They offer cheap loans with low interests, and many of us take the bait because we want a new car or a bigger house, just like our neighbors. There is plenty of cheap money in circulation, a lot of economic activity is generated with new businesses and jobs, and we have more demands for consumer goods. People get confident in their everyday lives, taking new loans and buying more worthless shit, but suddenly all of the banks start to change the pattern, but unfortunately, we're hooked. The interests go up again, and the criteria for taking loans are getting harder and harder. Suddenly, there's not nearly as much money in circulation as before, and fewer things are being bought, so you see where this is going, right? Companies shut down, people lose their jobs, and they can't pay the mortgage anymore and are forced to sell their houses and property, and who takes advantage of that scenario? Yes, that's right, the banks, because they get the real wealth in terms of property and land they had signed to them for lending out money. So that's all for this time, but tell us what you think about this in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to our channel for more videos in the future. Peace.